So I'm Jason, I'm your tutor for this introduction to remixing. I work at CM as one of the tutors here. I teach on their foundation degree course. I don't know if you've heard about it. I also I DJ under the name of Warlock. I've been doing that for too many years now, and sort of produce as well under that name, and a couple of other aliases. So I'm going to talk to you about a remix I've done only about 2 months ago actually, and it's a remix of a song by. It's a drummer from the band called the Django Djangos. I don't know if anyone knows the band Django Djangos. There's a great band actually. They're I don't know why that's not kind of fully downloaded, but that's this is them. There's their website. They've been touring a lot at the moment, so all the big festivals out in Australia, the US as well. So basically, the remix I've done is there's. The drummer from the band, he set up a label. He wanted to run this kind of sort of like record label on vinyl. Hi, come in. What's your name?
Bob.
Bob, yeah, got you down. Cool.
Cool.
Take a seat anywhere. So the drummer in the band, Dave McLean, he wanted to set up a label, kind of releasing any sort of music he wanted to do. And I've had a release on them myself so far. They've had about 4 releases now. And from doing that, they kind of got in touch with me and wanted me to remix a track, which is a collaboration between Dave, who's the drummer in the band, and another sort of well-known producer, Elvis 1990. And this is kind of sort of techno house track, more techno, I guess. So they wanted me to remix that. So I'm going to kind of just talk to you about how I remixed this track, and then I'm going to give you the Logic files for you to have a little look at, and in a sort of very short space of time have a go at maybe attempting a remix on that as well. So any questions? Does that all sound all right? I mean, I'm going to be working on Logic X, Logic Pro X, which is like the latest version. If you haven't got any Logic experience, it should be fine. I'll try to talk you through enough to get you going. Bob, have you got any Logic experience? No, about any other music software programs?
Only DJ software programs.
Okay.
So that kind of thing.
Cool. That's what you were talking about, Tractor.
I'm the same.
That's fine. Well, you'll kind of get a little go at this, and maybe we'll help you along. It'll be fine. Okay, so first of all, I'm going to play you the original of the song that I got sent to remix. It's about 6 minutes long, so I'm just going to play you a couple of minutes from that track. It's sort of a quite sort of 4 to the floor techno track. Okay, so there's quite a lot of the elements there already. I'm going to sort of forward it on a bit. There's some more elements that come in a little bit later on. There's that same drop again. It's sort of like an extra little synth melody that's come in there. This is about 3 minutes into the track. And I want to forward it on. There's a really good bass sound that comes in. Where is it? This is like a one note. This is a really nice sort of like heavy sub bass. And then it kind of carries on like so to kind of end. So I've just kind of skimmed through the tune a little bit just to kind of give you a bit of an overview. Any thoughts on what you've heard so far, or anything you like or don't like or would like to add to it? I mean, I've just kind of given you a quick blast through the track, but anything spring to mind just on that first listen?
The bass line was quite cool.
That the one towards the end? Yeah. Okay. Anything else?
There was like the hollowy-esque, it's quite metallic, like the sound.
Yeah.
You could sort of take that, snip that up into a whole sort of melody, have it almost like a breakdown before a drop.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought that was a good sound. I mean, I think that's the thing when you approach remixes, is sometimes you might just kind of find one little song and then it just expands into a whole sort of melody or riff in itself. Which, yeah, that's something we're going to look at actually. Okay, I mean, let's have a look at the remix I did. So when I had a listen to this, I sort of listened to it and I liked it, and then I was also beginning to think of like other things that could be added in there. I mean, in terms of remixing, I do remixes here and there. I kind of more focus on sort of producing my own tunes, but every now and then, sort of someone I know is involved with something, I might do a remix for them, or things to, you know, I get requested to do remixes once in a while. And I mean, this one came through because I had a release on their label already, Kick and Clap. But you know, sometimes you get remixes and you don't actually like the original. There's nothing in the original you can kind of sort of take that you like, or maybe sometimes the original's just like brilliant and you don't want to touch it. It's a classic in itself. I mean, that's a whole other way of remixing as well. You know, I'm kind of remixing a track that's already a legendary track is quite a big task. Maybe if it's from a long time ago and you want to kind of contemporise it in some way. But yeah, so with this remix, I kind of thought, okay, there's bits in there I like. I decided I quite like the main. There's a couple of sort of synth melody lines in there. That's what I kind of really wanted to focus on, and just some of those individual little sound effects that I liked in there as well, like the whoop, a couple of sort of percussion sounds. I decided to kind of just completely take the drums out, more because I wanted to kind of bring my own style of drums to the remix. And what I actually was going to do, I was going to use a drum machine that I've got. It's called a Roland TR8, which is based on the sort of famous the 808 and 909 Roland drum machines. So I was going to use that, putting my own rhythms into that. But then I kind of found myself using Logic's Virtual Drummer, which is brilliant. So I ended up using the drums from that instead on the track. So what I'm going to just show you first of all is, so this is actually all the original stems. So when you do a remix, what normally happens is whoever you're remixing will send you stems for you to remix. Stems are like audio files. They're either sort of a loop. In this case, here's one loop here, one stem. This is 4 bars long. This lead sound here, this is 32 bars long. When you get sent stems of audio, they're either in short little loops like this, or sometimes if it's say a 4-minute track, it's sort of 4-minute bits of audio of all the different elements of the track. That can sort of end up being a bit consuming in terms of file size, because if you've got 10 4-minute audio stems, that could be a folder of like 400 or 500 megabytes or more. as it stands, this folder of stems was probably about, I think, about 90 megabytes because they're sort of smaller loops. If I just have a look in here, yeah, here's the stems I got sent. I'm just going to give you a little preview. So there's a sort of like acid line in the track. That's a sort of squeaky kind of riff. There's another version of it. There's that nice bass sound. There's all the claps. So the percussion's been separated out onto its individual tracks. And this one's got quite a lot of silence on it, but I think in there somewhere, there you go, there's that sort of affected sound. So that's a typical way you'd be kind of presented with the files for a remix. Now the original track was at 130 BPM, and it's been kind of labelled there as such anyway, so that's nice and easy. I can just go into Logic, and if I want to use the same tempo. I did actually for my remix keep to the same tempo. It's a tempo I sometimes loosely work at, or around that tempo. But yeah, remixing can often involve working at a different tempo. So you might want to look at sort of shifting this up and down in speed. I'm going to come on to that in a little bit, how we can do that. But first of all, so here's all the stems. I kind of just dropped them all in. They're all there together. I probably want to sort of separate them out, but just so you can see them all. I've put all the drums. I've actually put the drums onto a sort of subgroup here, just to kind of tuck those out of the way. I decided I didn't want to kind of use the sort of squeak sound. The sounds I did actually want to use. So it's kind of this acid line, not that one. This bass sound, and this lead sound really. They're kind of the most sort of identifiable bits from the track that I decided to use. So let's have a look at the remix that I did. This is this file here. This is my sort of finished remix. And I mean, just to kind of explain the virtual drummer for those that's new to it. So in Logic, one of the ways you can do drums is this thing called virtual drummer. It's actually really good. It's a new feature with the latest with Logic X. So if I go to, I'm going to go back to those stems I was just using. If I want to add in Logic's virtual drummer, in the normal way that we just add a new track by going on the plus sign here, this is where you can just add a software instrument or an audio track into Logic. There's this option here, drummer. If I press create, all of this window appears, and this is the virtual drummer panel over here. And what happens is these yellow regions here, when you load up virtual drummer, it comes with these sort of ready-made loops. They're not quite loops as in like Apple loops. They're somewhere in between Apple loops and MIDI, or between audio loops and MIDI. And you're able to kind of tweak them to get different rhythms, different drum sounds, different sound to the drums as well. So I'm just going to quickly, I've got this soloed. I've actually got it complete. Okay, let's just solo that completely. I'll take these other things out. Okay, what's happened there? So this two yellow regions here, this is the virtual drummer. Click on the scissors up there to open up the edit window. You can also just click on the regions themselves. You've actually got two regions here, this one and this one. They're different variations on the programming or the rhythm of the drums. I'm just actually going to focus on the first one. So what's happening here with the virtual drummer, you can see this is R&B there. You can click on here and you can kind of choose a different style of drummer or a drummer for a different genre. And they range from sort of more traditional sounding live drums to kind of more sort of chopped up sampled sounding hip hop drums, and also electronic, which sound more like drum machines. But they're all kind of based around these real virtual drummers, which you can see at the moment. We've got one over here. This is Rose. If I click on here, there's a choice of other drummers. There's different drummers in each category. If I go to alternative, for instance, you'll see another whole batch of drummers here. Being me and what I'm into, and also the track that I was remixing, I went straight to the electronic drum kits. I chose one of the drummers. I chose Magnus there. So this should sound different now. Yeah, it sounds more like it sounds very much like a typical kind of electronic drum beat. I'm just going to switch back to rock while we're playing. Let's go to Kyle. Okay, so that's just gone back to one of the rock drums. You can hear the difference. But yeah, I'm going to go into electronic. Okay. So you've got lots of different parameters you can control. I'm not really going to go into too much details here, but just a quick overview. This window here, you can just click and drag this, and it just varies the sound of the drums to being loud, soft, simple, or more complex. So if I play it, as you can hear it getting louder. Over this side, it should be more stripped down. Over this side, it's going to be more complex and busier. So wherever you kind of land on that grid will kind of affect those different parameters. And you've got further controls over here where you can kind of bring in other percussion sounds or take some out. What I kind of want to introduce over here on the left, we've got the library for the whole of Logic. When you're in the virtual drummer, you can change the drum kits here. There's a whole load of drum kits down here. At the moment, we're using this big room one. The one I used in my remix was this one here, the neon one. That's just taking a moment to load. I kind of went for this one here. So that's just a very quick overview of virtual drummer. There's a lot of depth to it. It's brilliant. You can kind of get really in deep with it in quite a complex level. But at the same time, just using it at this level, it's very easy to use just to kind of get a beat up and running straight away. So let's go to my remix and let you have a little listen to what I did here. And what we'll do, we'll play it from the beginning. I've got, you can see the neon drum kit here. I've got a few different tracks. This one, this one, this one, this one, and this one. They're all the drums from Virtual Drummer. Let's get rid of these. So I'm just going to play this right from the beginning. I'm just going to stop it there and just talk about what's happened so far. Can anyone sort of notice anything from the original so far? Anything jump out? I know you've only heard the original once as such, but
the bass line similar?
Yeah, the bass line's definitely similar, yeah. Anything else? Any of the sounds in there? Obviously, I've kind of completely replaced the drums, so the drums are not from the original, they're all from Virtual Drummer. Any of the sounds in there?
Is that the high pitch? Whoop! I bet that's.
Yeah. Yeah, I took that from the original of the tune as well. Yeah, I mean it's not the two. I was talking about the two, that sort of lead synth line and the other sort of acidy sort of synth line. They haven't come in yet. They're about to come in. So at this point, yeah, it's only sort of there's only so much from the original track. But let me talk about what we've got so far. So we've got all the drums from Virtual Drummer.
Can I just ask one quick question? So
Go
the first bit you played me with us was your rendition of the mix.
Oh, yeah,
and
yeah.
this is the original.
Other way round.
Other way around.
This is my
Oh,
remix.
fine.
Yeah, this is my
okay.
remix of what I just played earlier. Yeah.
So there's a lot more coming in.
On this one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's one of the things I thought with the original. I liked what was there, but I thought there was definitely room to add in some other instrumentation as well. The drums, in terms of taking out the drums, I just took them out because I just wanted to do my own drums. The drums in the original I thought were great as well, but I just wanted to have my own sort of style to it. But yeah, what I did do is, so this, you can hear this this new synth line that's coming in, this one that comes in from the start. That's sort of been there from the beginning in my remix. This is actually off one of my synths, which is what's called a Zox box, which is a clone of a Roland 303. The Roland 303 is a very famous synth that kind of spawned acid house, and kind of, if you ever hear anyone talking about acid or acid music or acid house or acid in tracks, like that's the machine they're talking about. So this is what I'm using here. And what I'm doing as well is kind of, you notice all of this is a whole section of audio, because on my, what I should quickly do, let me just bring up a picture of a Zox box for you. On the Zox box I've got, we've got a whole load of controls that you can tweak live. Yeah, this is a typical example here. Yeah, something exactly like this. Okay. Yeah, so this is what that sound is coming from. So you can see these dials here, various parameters that control the sound. So we've got cutoff, resonance, decay, modulation. Yeah, mainly those four in the middle. I'm just kind of tweaking those live and recording that all into Logic for that section that's on my remix there. Now where I got the notes, where I kind of got the idea for the notes from, I did sort of have a little play around on the keyboard to try and kind of come up with something, but then I thought I'm going to go into, I'm going to use a really interesting feature with Logic, which is called flex time. And the way I use this, or what I used this for, was, if I find, let's just go back to the stems. Let's just mute this out. So this riff here, this acid riff here, I was kind of taking this as sort of having this sort of, you know, some sort of like the melodic content I wanted to work with. So let's turn this off. There's this brilliant feature in Logic called Flex Time, which allows you to do lots of different things, but mainly it's kind of for like kind of time stretching audio. Only works with audio, but it's sort of for getting audio to kind of fit in time with your Logic project. So if you've got a bit of audio, you want it to kind of fit in with the tempo of the track, but maybe you don't want the musical pitch to kind of go up and down. So that's kind of the purpose of that. But it has an additional new feature. Flex pitch we get to by clicking on this button here. Actually, I'm just going to put this back to something else. Okay. Yeah, flex pitch can be accessed by this purple button here. And then on each of these tracks here, you can see there's a further sort of similar flex pitch or flex time button here, which is in purple when it's on and greyed out when it's off. So I'm going to turn that on. it's got flex time's got these different modes here for different types of stretching depending on the audio that you're trying to work with. But what there actually is this additional feature that's been added to flex time called flex pitch. And this is brilliant. I mean, essentially it's more for working with vocals to kind of often to kind of maybe just sort of fix up vocals if a vocalist sings and maybe the odd note is slightly sort of sharp or flat and it just needs slightly fixing up. There's been software on the market for quite a few years that does this, things like Melodyne, Auto-Tune, but Logic in its new version has kind of incorporated that idea into the software. So what I wanted to use this for actually was to kind of just have a look at what the notes were. So if I double click on this region, opens up the edit window. You've got two panels here, file, for more conventional audio editing, or track. In here, you'll notice to the left there's a piano roll down the left here. And what you can see, by me doing this analysis, it's actually analysed this acid riff and kind of picked out the notes there. These are the notes that have been played. It's a little bit well, this bit's fine. It can be a little bit hit and miss in terms of its calculation sometimes. But what I did from here, I then, from this edit menu over here, and this is sort of getting deep into sort of more advanced uses of Logic, under this edit menu, right down the bottom here, there's this option here that says create MIDI track from flex pitch data. So this is all flex pitch data, what you can see. So I want to create a MIDI track. So I'm going to do that right now. And yeah, what it's done there is it's kind of just put the notes here in a conventional MIDI track as if you was recording MIDI into Logic. Or if you was recording off the keyboard, the notes would go in like so. So I kind of use that as a starting point. Let's come out of here for a minute. If we go back to what we're looking at, what it's actually done, here's my original acid audio loop. It's created a new track here. It just kind of puts whatever the sort of first available instrument is. But you could assign that now to any different instrument in Logic from there. But it's got the MIDI information there. So the important thing is I can send that to a different sound source. So what I did with my remix, go back to here, with flex pitch, I analysed the notes from the acid riff, and then they appear here where it says Pro 24 MIDI. This is all the MIDI information here. I've kind of muted it out now because but this information, MIDI information, was being sent to my Zox box. That's kind of playing the notes of my Zox box, my 303 clone, and then I was just tweaking it live. That's how I kind of got to that, creating that sort of section there. I mean, this is really useful as well if you're not so sort of confident on the keyboard and you want to kind of try and work out the notes of something that you're remixing. It's a great way of just analysing them and working them out and then building from there. Okay, so we've got the drums covered there. We've got the acid, this new acid riff I put in here. What else was going on? There's just before I stopped, this big bass line came in. So what I was doing here, this bass here, like someone said earlier, I quite like that bass sound. I definitely want to use this. But then I tried to sort of play a sort of a bass line with it. I loaded up into a sampler, which is something I'm going to look at in a minute. But I wasn't really feeling what I was coming up with because it's quite a big bass line. It kind of was sort of taking over with all the other synths. So I thought, okay, I'm going to do that same kind of thing of just like the one note. But then what I did, I loaded up another one of my synths, which is sequential circuits, which I've got pictured here. This synth here is a great synth. It kind of just makes really good analog sounds, really quite weird sounds as well. It was used a lot in the early days of, not the early days, but I think a lot of Doctor Who sounds from like the 70s were kind of created on this. Great machine. So what I did, I kind of just played the same note that bass was playing, the one from the original, and I just played it on my sequential 6 track, and then I just kind of recorded that in. No, wrong one. There we go. Yeah, I just recorded that in as audio, so you can see. Yeah, there it is. Yeah, I just kind of. Just had it in there and just repeated it all the way through. Not even any kind of variation on this one. Just kept it as a constant note. Keeping it quite simple, but for its kind of bigness. And then also, yeah, we kind of mentioned this as well. The whoop sound, I incorporated that. I like that. This one here. I kind of put 2 instances in there and put them sort of slightly out of time of each other and just kind of gave a sort of delayed feel. I played it in slightly differently. The original is more, it was twice as fast. But let me show you how I managed to replay that. So this is, we find it in the originals here. So this is this one. So yeah, there's the original. Again, what I was kind of thinking, I'm going to load it up into a sampler, put it on the keyboard and see if I can sort of just play something different with it. I kind of settled with just actually having it half time. But in how I actually did this, here's the audio of the original stems that I got sent. I just kind of basically just picked out the first note with the scissor tools, just cut, leaving a bit of a tail just in case there's any kind of sort of reverb tails on there, and just kind of just chopping this down like so. Just making sure that I kind of trim to the very beginning of the sample so that when I trigger it off the keyboard there's no sort of kind of gaps or silence in the beginning. Kind of it's worth really zooming in really close to see what's going on. That seems all right actually. And I can get rid of these other ones. Sometimes what I might do to kind of avoid the sample sounding a bit suddenly truncated because I've edited it there, if I go into the tools, I select the fade tool, just put a little fade on the end like so, just to kind of stop. Sometimes you can get little clicks at the beginning just from chopping the audio. Sometimes you might want to put one on the beginning as well, and then you can just adjust this to sort of how you want it, if you want it to kind of be more fade out really quickly or a slower fade. So do something like that, and then what I would do is right click on this audio of that one whoop and select this option here, convert to new sampler track. This just loads that one sample into a sampler and then it can be played across the whole keyboard. If you don't see it there, if you've been using it before, it will show up at the top of the menu. If you can't find it from there, you just go down to convert there and it's there as an option. So I'm going to click convert to new sampler track. You get a few options come up here. I'm not really going to go into these right now. Usually it's all right. Sometimes it might not be, but that actually looks fine. So I'm just going to press OK. And then what's going to happen is it's created a new track here. I don't know if you notice this to happen here. This one here, and it says whoop.exs_1, and it's got a MIDI region there. What it's actually done, it's that piece of audio, it's put it into this sampler here, the EXS24, which if I double click on this, it brings this up. This is now in the sampler and now available to play on the keyboard. It's not anywhere else on the keyboard, it's only on this note here. Usually by default it puts it on middle C or note 60 on the keyboard here, which might be fine if you're just doing like a one note trigger. That's often all right. But if I wanted to spread it across the whole span of the keyboard, I'd go into the click on the edit button here, and you can see a kind of representation there of the keyboard. You can just click on the edge of, you might have noticed there it was just kind of only on C3. That's the span there, that blue box there. I just kind of drag that way, and that way is basically going to put it right across the keyboard. I probably wouldn't necessarily want it that far. I might just be doing a kind of just playing something around the original pitch. But that's one way you can kind of work with little samples and then start changing things up. So I'll close this, save this. So let's just go back to my remix again. Let's just move this out of the way. Okay, so we kind of I just really played you the intro so far. So let's play you a bit more of the track. I think we got up to just about where the bass came in. So let's. Move it a bit further forward to here. I've introduced this new sound here. This is coming from the Sculpture synth in Logic, really good for sort of nice atmospheric sort of sounds. Just to kind of fill out this, just to kind of give a bit of development in what's going on. Let's bring this back to here. So what's going on here is I'm starting to introduce those main sort of synth lead elements that were in the original I wanted to use, and they're up here. I'm just actually slowly kind of bringing this in with automated volume. Here we go, yeah, that you can see it there. This is kind of like slowly automating in. Also, that one there as well, that original kind of one from the, I didn't change these at all. I just kind of had them in there pretty much as they were, and then I'm adding all my other elements to it. So with this section, this kind of, when it drops into this next section, I also picked up on one of the percussion sounds. There's a distorted tom, sounds like a kind of distorted 909 tom, which I really like the sound of, which is, where is that? Let's just play this from here. This one. So what was going on here, this is just a personal sort of like story inside my head really with this sound. But I heard this sound in the original files, basically it was just in there as like one, so it wasn't even how I played it, it was just in there as one sound. Let me just find where it is. I think it's on this one. Yeah, there it is. There's something. There we go. So I'm laughing here because the reason I kind of picked up on this, I like that kind of distorted 909 tom sound, and the reason I kind of did what I did with it is because of just a techno track I used to play quite a few years ago. This is from about 1994, 1995. It's a Dave Clark remix of DJ Hell, actually, on great label Disco B. And I just always one of the distinctive things about this quite banging techno track, it just had this kind of distorted tom sound going from, and you'll hear from the beginning, actually. Let's just play this. You'll hear straight away what kind of I was sort of going for. This track is very much kind of so very drum machine driven, and those toms make quite a big feature. So kind of when I heard that distorted tom sound, I was like, oh yeah, that sounds exactly like that track, and I was like, I'm going to just replay that same kind of tom riff. So that's kind of where that section of that kind of just led the sort of that section of the tune, really. And kind of then I just sort of built everything around from there. So quite a small detail, really, and just, you know, just something that was going on in my head, but that's kind of why this next section happened, if you like. So then the remix kind of progresses. There's kind of big section based around this. Kind of break it down a little bit with some of those, with that lead sound there, giving that a bit of focus. And I just kind of sort of drop back into that bass loop and then sort of just bring everything back together, all the original loops from the song, well, the two synth leads that I liked, that big bass sound from my sequential, and then also the main, this one in purple here, the sort of acid riff that I created on my Zox box, just bringing it all together as a kind of finale. And again as well, kind of like on those controls for the Zox box, just to kind of get a bit of movement throughout the track. And then to sort of bring it to an end here. I think this remix turned out to be about nearly 6 minutes as well. And it just ends there. Cool. So that's kind of how I went about remixing that track. I mean, it's, you know, every remix is a different situation depending on the sounds you've been given, what the original is, you know, how you want to approach the remix. I mean, I guess I wasn't doing it in a completely different genre. I was still doing a kind of sort of, I guess, a sort of techno bass style kind of track. But yeah, just introduce some other elements into it, really. I mean, any questions on what I've just played there at all? All right. Well, in the short time we've got left, what I've got for you is I've got the stems as I've kind of sort of been referring to. This is the original stems. I've got them already in a Logic project, so that saves a bit of time. What I want you to have a go at doing, well, just to kind of explain what's here. So all the bits in blue, they're all the percussion elements, and I've kind of put them onto one sort of subgroup here, just to fold a track, just to kind of keep them together. And then all these other elements here, they're all kind of just there all together. You wouldn't necessarily want to have them all together. What I've also done is, so earlier I just showed you how to kind of get a little sample and put it into a sampler track. If this is new to you, I've kind of actually created 3 sampler tracks here. So this one here that says samples on keyboard. I've put the bass line, I've put that as one note on the keyboard. So let's just unmute that. That's like there, but I've kind of spread it across the keyboard. Quite a noisy bass drum, but that's there. Also, the squeak sound, which I decided to leave out of my remix, but if you wanted to use that, that one's there. That's all down there. And then finally that whoop sound, the vocal, that's there. Again, across the whole span of the keyboard. So if you want to use those, I've actually, again, if this is new to you, I've put, where it says bus 3 here, I've actually put a, just a little stereo delay on here, should you want to sort of have a play around with that. Just kind of gives an extra bit of texture. You can hear that delay at the end of the sound there. So that's there as well if you want to kind of work with those. So what I'd like you to do, have a quick look at these files. First of all, maybe just, if this is new to you, maybe just have a go at putting in your own drums. So use the virtual drummer that I talked about by clicking on the plus here. It's over there. I haven't really talked about this, but over here on this dial here, you've got Apple loops. You might want to possibly drop some of these in, but maybe before you do that, maybe just have a listen to these bits of audio. Just maybe like move them around into an order that you want to kind of, you can start arranging some of these loops. You can maybe take some out, think, okay, you don't like one of the sounds, take that one out. If you wanted to start chopping up some of these sections, you could kind of chop them up and repeat them. If you press T on the keyboard, you get the tools, and you've got scissors here, and then you can kind of just snip things up and kind of do different things with them, kind of repeat them. If you do put the scissor tools on, just go into the tools again and click on pointer tool when you finish cutting, because otherwise you'll find yourself accidentally cutting more things than you need to. So this is on your desktop, so it should be up in the top left-hand corner. There's a folder that says Remix Files, CM Remix Files. If you go to the one that says number 2, Instrument Files number 2, and if you open that up, you'll get what's on the screen. So the files at 133. What I did with this Logic project for you, I kind of put flex time on. Remember I talked about flex time and is able to kind of stretch the audio. I've kind of flex time all the tracks. So basically, if you want to change the tempo, this is a tempo up here. It's on 133. If I play this. Hello. Right. We can change the tempo and it will automatically re-stretch all of the audio. So if you wanted to slow it down, let's drop these in. Up here where it says 133, if you just kind of pull this up and down, you can kind of set a tempo that you want. So you could have it as low as 105 or whatever, or you can go up to 160, 170 if you want to do a kind of drum and bass version. So yeah, have a look at that. Okay, Rod, can I get you all to stop for a minute? If you want to take your headphones off. If anyone fancies sort of playing back what they've been working on, I don't expect them to be any kind of finished state. Obviously, only got so much time to work on this. But if anyone wants to sort of play back on the speakers what they've done, I can bring it up on the speakers. Yeah, cool. Yeah, cool.
That's really interesting because it's a completely different sound and vibe to the music. So
Yeah.
it's good example of what you can do.
Yeah.
Well, you can go whatever direction you want to go to. Whatever your style is, whatever your thing is. Yeah. Obviously, it sounds very much more drum and bass, but sort of just replaying like a whole different melody with some of those one sort of shot sounds. I mean, sometimes with remixes, I think you have to be careful. And sometimes people do this on a remix tracks. It's like the remix won't sound anything like the original because someone's just taken really small snippets and just used them as kind of original samples to make a whole new track. But it kind of that goes on as well. And that's, I'd imagine probably what you would have started doing is introducing a couple of the other sort of leads in there as well.
I got bogged down way too much in the drums and the percussion, because I love snipping up bits of percussion.
Of course, yeah, there's lots to
fun.
cut up. Cool, but no, brilliant, well done. Anyone else want to play what they've done? I don't mind if you don't want to play, but if you do. Bob, do you want to play yours? Cool. All right, well that kind of brings us to the end of the session. Thanks for listening, hope it's been of use. Yeah, good luck if you start doing some remixes. Cool. Thank you. think you've